Hello and welcome back once again on Boomer Live as we are going to be previewing once again in today's game and in today's preview show it is Australia vs Netherlands. Australia who've been in a two-game winning run will be facing Netherlands who've been showing a lot of heart and grit throughout this World Cup. Even in the last game against Sri Lanka you saw the game was dragged deep by the Dutch squad and Australia would want to get in a winning role at this point and gain all the momentum as possible as they'll be facing New Zealand and England in their coming games. But before that, they want to sit comfortably by picking up 6 points. I have Jaren with me. Jaren, a massive game on our hands right now, as these two teams are the two teams to watch out for, especially for Australian perspective. For Netherlands, they've been very exciting to watch as well. You never know. They're always trying to string a surprise here or there. Or when you talk about Australia, they'd want to be more compact with the comeback of Travis, and most likely he will be playing today.
Yeah, I think the comeback of Travis Head is going to be the most important one for Australia because that guy has been just he's been doing a very good job for them in the one day format. In the middle overs, he's been that pivotal batter, who has a bunch of gears with him, we would say, where he can play the protective role or the pragmatic side of cricket as well. And on the other hand, he can be just as destructive. He's always looking for a boundary option. He is an aggressive batter for sure, and that obviously means that he will bring in a lot more than what Manas Labuschagne brings into the team. Now, Manas Labuschagne is a very good batter for sure, but as we've spoken so many times, cannot have two batters of the same mold. You already have Steve Smith, who is batting, who's not really in form. You would say he's not done well in the four matches that he's played, but much worse. He's had a strike rate of 71.29, and that's not really a good sign. And Labuschagne, he's had a better strike average, but again, a strike rate of 64.17, so 71. So not really a good thing when in the middle overs they suddenly slow down. And I think with the inclusion of Travis Head, that's going to definitely change and get better for the likes of
Absolutely.
Australia.
Absolutely. Australia won the toss. They've chosen to bat first. That's a great beginning right now. But for Australia as well, they would want to really back their strength at this point. Like if you look at teams like South Africa, Australia, they really are backing themselves to play a barrier for cricket up front without any target up, in their mind. We've often spoken about that trend changing in the last one decade, but in this World Cup, we're again reiterating or going back to the very fact that having runs on the board can be a certain blessing for you, especially to come out there and back your bowlers to go out there and maybe defend total. Because chasing can be slightly more tricky because you're having a lot of thoughts, and this 50-over World Cup has been a clear sign as to maybe chasing is not the right way as all. Maybe for certain teams, India has been one exception in this. Other teams have certainly struggled while chasing, and you talk about Australia, they did struggle chasing. If you talk about that second game against South Africa when they came in Lucknow, they did struggle chasing. But after that, they have battles. After that 360 odd they've scored against Pakistan, they want to upbeat that and continue the momentum against Netherlands as well by scoring some big runs on the board and coming out there and defending and maybe upping their net run rate as well by bowling out the opposition cheaply.
I think you're right about that, because I think teams have felt it easier in that first half because the ball hasn't swung as much. Under the lights, it seems, with the breeze blowing at the night sky, it seems like there's a lot more dare for the fast bowlers with the new ball. And we've seen a lot more wickets fall in the power play for other teams. And I think Australia and Netherlands are two of the teams who have felt the pain. Obviously, Netherlands have really struggled in the power play, with the bat. And I think that's also been the difference because by the time they're into by the time they're into that middle overs period, that's where they really struck. That's where they really already have lost the match. And I think they've got a run rate of 3.7 as well. But on the other hand, when you're batting first in the daylight, you feel a lot more comfortable against that ball because the ball stops swinging or moving off the in the air a lot quickly than when it comes under the lights. And I think India, obviously, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, is the only team who's actually been able to survive it. But yeah, on the other hand, these two teams will, I think, still prefer to bat first, and Australia will feel happier that they're batting first, especially considering that it went well for them when they were. It did not go that well for them, in fact, when they were chasing, or when they were playing under the lights last time around. I know it was a truncated game and they were still
Yeah.
playing under the lights, but yeah, I think they'll feel a lot more comfortable playing in the sunlight.
Absolutely. There's one change which Australia made, that is Cam Green, who comes into the team from Marcus Stoinis. The news is that Travis Head is not yet there. So Marnus Labuschagne remains in this team at number 4, and Cam Green replaces Marcus Stoinis in the team at number 7. That's the only change which Australians have made. But we did speak about this just a couple of minutes ago as to how big a factor Travis Head can be in this team. Now for Steve Smith, this is such a big game. Understandably, it's a weaker opposition. No disrespect to Netherlands, but Steven Smith would want to gain some form. Mitchell Marsh did score 100. David Warner is back in form, but Steve Smith or for the like Glenn Maxwell, both of these players would want to really strike big. If they both start striking, then once you get Travis Head in the middle order, then this can be even more potent as they go deep into this World Cup with England, New Zealand, and all these teams to follow.
I think that's been a big issue for them, right? The middle order for sure. Look at three players that man that middle order. You've got Manas Labuschagne, you've got Glenn Maxwell, and you've got Steve Smith. All of them have played unimpactful knocks. I think Labuschagne has still scored runs. He is their third highest run getter. But even then, at a second of third, I mean, average of 30, his strike rate has been deplorable. And 64 is probably a test match strike rate in this era. It's not even a one day format. It's not at all a one day strike rate for sure. And obviously, Glenn Maxwell and Steve Smith haven't scored enough runs. Steve Smith has only scored 72 runs in 4 matches, so not looking that great at all. And then the other player you've got is Josh English. Now, Josh English has only played 3 matches, but I think by the time Josh English comes on, the middle order really messes up. It messes up at such a level that he's stuck between playing a game that he's not really comfortable with. He's someone who likes to go after the bowling, but he can't because he has to play that pragmatic cricket and save wickets. When that's where he also ends up making mistakes. So I think that middle order is really needs to improve. And Marcus Stoinis as well hasn't really impressed with the bat. So a lot. I think Cameron Green coming in is something that we had already discussed. I would have really been more comfortable if he had come in instead of a Manas Labuschagne. But I think unfortunately for Australia, there's a niggle that is there with Marcus Stoinis. That's the reason why you're seeing Cameron Green come in. That's what Pat Cummins has said in the toss. So overall, you'd have to say that this team still has a middle order conundrum, and I think that needs to be resolved. And for that, Steve Smith needs to step up. It's really absurd to think of that Steve Smith in his favorite country, that is India. I think if there's one place that he'll call home other than Australia, is probably India. And here, him struggling in India is something that is unheard of previously. So I think he has to come up. And I think there's no question when it comes to his talent. It's just about the fact that when and how he can overcome the mental block.
A good point, to be very fair, because when you talk about Cam Green as well, there's one factor to Cam Green, and where is he going to be batting? Does he bat at number 7, or can he come and bat at number 5 for this team? Do you reckon number 5 is not a bad option for Cam Green and then push a Josh Inglis to number 7, because he's comfortable finishing games for Australia in comparison to a Cam Green who would be thrown right in the middle of the ocean straight up and tell him to come, go out there and finish games. He's not that kind of a player who has got that extreme bit of range which Josh Inglis has. He's got the 360-degree game. He's got the sweeps. He's got the paddles. He's got the laps. Which Cam Green has got a range in his wheel. He likes to take his time a little bit up front and then get going. If at all there's a batting collapse as well, Cam Green is a better suited player than a Josh Inglis to come out there and maybe steady the ship, because he's also got that experience of batting up in the order.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also the reason why we've kept telling that they should start. I mean, that Cam Green can be the replacement for Manas Labuschagne, because you need that impetus in the middle order. He's the kind of batter, as you rightly mentioned. He's the kind of batter you can still trust when a team is 3 wickets down, 4 wickets down, to play a game of a long haul. But the issue again, I think again, what this can do is make Josh English a lot more narrow-minded. And when I say that in a good way. Like you can ask him to focus on the task at hand, which is to be a lot more destructive. And I think Australia, the way they've batted, not allowed him to get to that position. And I think if you push him down at number 7, he can do that. And especially granted the fact that he won't have to play. Not saying that he won't have to play spinners as much as he won't have to play defensive cricket. He'll get to play a lot more aggressive, and he'll get to do what his role in this team should be actually.
Absolutely. Aisha says up to 280 Netherlands can chase. Now that's a good question, because for Netherlands as well, this game will be all about restricting Australia to as low a target as possible. Maybe get the middle order to bat up front in the power play, get the openers, get an out of form Steve Smith and Manas Labuschagne, and maybe rip through the middle overs, which is quite a possibility with this Australian team. They can also collapse, which we've been talking about. If the Australian team's middle order collapses, then Netherlands will be well and truly in this game.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the best way to go ahead is, I think there's something about Netherlands bowling as well, right? They're very deceptive in that power play. They're a very good power play bowling side. In the power play, they've bowled at 5.8 runs per over, gotten 7 wickets, which is better than Australia's record, by the way, in 4 matches. Even though Australia gives less runs away, they've only taken 3 wickets. So there is something about this Netherlands, this Dutch team, that in the power play and in the middle overs they do a very good job. It's just the death overs they sometimes give away a little bit of runs. They are a deceptively good bowling side. I think if you look at their team, it's been the batting that has been letting them down, really, especially the top order. But in the power play, in the middle overs, their bowling team is a very potent side. So Australia, I think they better watch out, because remember what they did against South Africa. It was no fluke. It's something that they've been doing for quite a while. Deceptively, I think they've been under the radar what this team can do. So I think a little bit, at least in the power play, they need to watch out for someone like a Bastelide. I think Van Meekeren, these lads are penetrative when it comes to the bowling. So interesting to see how an Australia faces up against them. Especially, I think today even an Aryan Dutt might come into the picture because they're playing in the in the afternoon session as well. So these lads, look at them as non-threatening, but they can just slip over a wicket because these guys do their homework, right? They know where to ball to you, how to ball to you, and the field setting is also highly choreographed. So going to be very interesting to get across the line for Australians.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a good point because one thing which we've always seen, I think Arden Dutt is going to be bowling the power play once again to David Warner. Considering there's a left-hander, he'll get to bowl to, and also at the same time we've been putting them under the carpet, like so Willow van der Merwe or like so Van Meekeren or for example Baz Lady, who's been one of the better death bowlers in one-day internationals for the last
Yeah.
2 years. I mean, his record is stellar out there in the death overs. But let's talk about Netherlands batting as well. They've lost a lot of wickets up front. Even against Sri Lanka, they were 91 for 6. South Africa, 130 for 7. There's one game if they have to chase anything except of 250 or 250 or 240 thereabouts, they'd want to keep wickets in hand and make sure their top order and middle order fires because they can never give it all again to the lower middle order or their lower order to come and save them every now and then. It might happen in a couple of occasions, and also agreeable to the fact that there is still a team which is in a learning process, who's still getting the experience of World Cup cricket and international pressure cricket, But I still feel that their top order have to step up if they have to. And yes, like some Max Adord, like some Basil Lee, they will have a big, big role to play. Scott Edward did a job against South Africa, but I still believe Maker and all these lads will have to really step up. Put the feet on the gas and feel like, okay, we will take the responsibility from here on and see how things go.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Netherlands and Australia, right, in that 4 matches, they've lost equal amount of wickets in the power play. But issue with Netherlands is they don't get going in the power play. They genuinely struggle to play that aggressive brand of cricket you require in the power play because, I mean, I know there are only two fielders outside in that, in the outfield, but it also means that you've got close to 7 fielders in the circle, and your safe shots are sometimes taken out of the equation. Down the ground shots become a lot more difficult because the only way to score runs is you have to get through that inner ring of fielders, and you sometimes feel like the Dutch batters struggle. Especially, I think the reason for that is also because Max O'Dowd has really not played that real well as he did in the T20 World Cup, right? The biggest strength in the T20 World Cup was that in the power play, Max O'Dowd would take on the inner ring, score some shot because Vikramjit Singh is not that kind of a batter. He's a little bit more classical. He's someone who likes to, take his time, likes to wait a little bit before he goes after the bowling, or at least, over the ring. And that's where you need the likes of Max Without to step up. And they've struggled because they've lost 6 wickets in 4 matches, but their run rate has only been 3.8. And that is not good enough for 4 matches of sample size, especially in the World Cup. I mean, that is a place where they have struggled. And once you've lost these many wickets, right, in the power play and not really gotten off to a good start, it genuinely puts pressure on your middle order and your, lower middle order. I think the Dutch lower middle order has done a very good job. thanks to Bastille. But it's their top order that has really struggled.
Absolutely, I agree with you because if you look at the first game against Pakistan, that was the only game where you really felt like Vikram Singh really scored runs, or Basile was trying to rescue them to a certain extent. Colin Ackerman did come good in another game, but you would really want a lot of them stepping up in cohesion and helping this team to score big runs. And once again, the challenge will be how much can they chase and how much are they comfortable chasing. Anything sub 300, maybe you will say like some Mitchell Stark, Hazelwood, Patrick Cummins, Adam Zampa, who's in form right now, and with Cam Green also there, you would really rule this team out to a certain extent by saying that Australia battered them out. But for Australia, let's talk from an Australian perspective. Would they want to continue playing that aggressive cricket which they did against Pakistan, which their openers will want to take their bowling attack on and maybe kill the game out in the first 20, 30 overs?
Yeah, absolutely. They'll have to. There's no two ways about it. That's what we were appreciating about Australia before the India series. I think something just snapped in them. We've spoken about this so many times, right? Something just snapped in them when they lost those three back-to-back matches at South Africa. When they came to India, they look like a completely different side. And I think they've also struggled a bit to adjust to Indian conditions in the five matches, that is three matches that they played against India, and then I mean rather four matches that they played against India, and then the one match that they again lost in the World Cup against South Africa. I think the batting has struggled to adjust to Indian conditions. I think the last two matches have helped them in that situation. So that's where I expect a better Australia to come forward, an Australia that we saw against Pakistan to come against the Dutch team. But that's where again, like a storm warning. That's where I give a warning of this Australia. Don't take this Dutch power play bowling as lightly as you would think. On paper they look like a very weak team, but they are a sum of their of the pieces. There are some of their whole team. They work together, and it's not like they have star power. It's street smarts that they use, and that's why it be a little bit on guard against this Dutch bowling team.
Absolutely, absolutely. But if you have to take about if we talk about one player to really surprise a lot of us today, I think I'll go with Manas Labuschagne. And he's got an opportunity today to maybe come in and bat in the power play if at all they lose a lot of wickets. But at the same time, if he has to really show it to the selectors, show it to the fans that he can go out there and do a job, it should be Manas Labuschagne, right? Because it's about time that he comes good. He played a couple of good knocks in that India series. In this World Cup, he's been completely off. He's not gotten those opportunities as well to really take the attack on. Maybe today, if he gets some confidence, as we spoke with Steve Smith, the other side of the coin is also Manas Labuschagne. Then maybe if Manas Labuschagne scores and Steve Smith doesn't, then Australian selectors or the team management will have a tough call whom to replace when Travis Head returns. And it could possibly be Steve Smith who will have to sit out as well if Manas Labuschagne starts scoring runs. Then Manas Labuschagne can get a promotion at number 3, and Travis Head can come at number 4.
Yeah, I mean, why did you select Manas Labuschagne in the first place? He was not even supposed to be in the squad. The only reason you selected him is because of the way he saved your team in those crucial first two one days, right? He scored a 80 odd, I remember, against South Africa when Australia were done and done about. And then again in the next match, he went on to score a century. So this lad has got the fight in him. He's got the dog in him, as you would say. He knows how to step up in tough situations. I mean, look at his test debut as a concussion substitute for Steve Smith. When Steve Smith was just your best batter in the Ashes series, was just reeled off after getting hit on the head. Next ball comes in, gets hit on the head, and stands up and stares back at Jofra Archer, probably the most feared bowler in that time. And this guy can do it. I think the only thing that at this point in time is he's lacking. Probably the one thing that I see is he's afraid he knows that once Travis Head is in, he's the one who's going to leave the team. And I think that is sitting on his head. Maybe that's the reason why he's being so defensive, just looking to score runs. I think he should just let go. Be the Manas Labuschagne that he is. Score runs and he can score runs at 88, 90 strike rate. It's not like he can't. It's just I think he's scared. He feels that pressure of Travis Head, being ushered in instead of him. I think he should look at the situation as nothing to lose. It's not just go after the bowling. That's what he did, right? In Australia, he knew that once Steve Smith is back, he's the one who's going to have to leave in that Test series or even in that one day series. He knew that once Steve Smith is back, he's the one who's going to have to leave, and he played like that. But I think just the reverse of it has happened now. And I think he needs to switch that mentality, and then the rest of it,
Absolutely.
Manas Labuschagne can do it when required.
Absolutely, and I think it's a good opportunity which is
Yeah.
posed to him whether he can score in this game or not. Because if he starts scoring runs, and if he starts scoring runs in big situations for Australia, right before some big games, or if they have to play in the knockouts, you'd want all your batters to be informed. The batters who are in the bench, batters who are in the playing 11. At this point, Australia is still figuring out who are their main players because two of their openers in the last game scored 280 odd runs, and the rest of the team just managed to score 80 runs. So that was a sheer disappointment when it comes to middle order batting from Australian team. And they'd want everybody to take a lot of responsibility, like Somanis Labuschagne and Steve Smith, especially because they are the main batters who everybody's got their eyeball set upon. And with Glenn Maxwell, he's volatile. You use him for situations, you use him for different conditions, and he will come good if you give him that kind of space as well. Last match, I was very disappointed with the kind of shot Glenn Maxwell played. Let's talk about Glenn Maxwell now. I think Glenn Maxwell has got a job in his hand as well, especially with the bat, to come in and maybe play the role which he has to play. With this team, I still feel there's a lot of clarity which he deserves, which I think is unclear at this point. Whether he's going to start hitting from ball one, whether he's going to come in and steady the ship a little bit and get going. With Glenn Maxwell, we've often seen that he's not a player who would want to come in and start hitting because he often loses his shape. He's got the ability to do that, but his consistency factor really drops down when he starts doing that job. But if you let him come in, settle down for like a couple of overs, then get going, he's a much more potent player. And that's one of the major reasons why you would want a Glenn Maxwell slot in at number 5 rather than anywhere else in the batting order.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing the job for them, wasn't he? He was being cautious. He was being a lot more, pragmatic initially in that first 10, 15 over balls, and then he started going after the bowling. But for some reason, it's not been the case for a while now. He has struggled. I really can't put a finger on it as well. One thing is for sure, he's overdoing his shots, and as you rightly mentioned, he's getting out, he's losing his shape, while trying to attack. And I think every batter who has played a certain level will tell you that when you're going after the ball, when you want to smash it as far as possible, your best way to do it is to go after the bowling, or I mean, not go after the bowling, but rather to ensure that you don't lose your shape, and for a while at least that's what he was doing. But I don't know what has genuinely happened with him. It's really a question again. It's not definitely the lack of it's not technique for sure. It's not the lack of ability. I think it's just the fact that he's not getting his eye in, and that's what's hurting him at this point in time.
True. I mean, that's one factor. With Glenn Maxwell and Australia, it's a collateral thing, to be very honest. To be honest, why? But if Glenn Maxwell does well, Australia will go on to do well. That's for sure. Because Glenn Maxwell is such a pivotal player to this team. He balls 4 to 5 or 6 overs on a good day, or maybe 10 as well, because he's the only second spinner in this team. And if he can start bashing spin through the middle overs, I think that'll give them a much better and a well-rounded setup at this point than what they have. Because Manas Labuschagne and Steve Smith are still under the scanner. If those three starts clicking, which is 3, 4, 5 for the Australian team, and with their openers in form, then all of the teams will start looking at them differently because they'll know this team can be extremely unstoppable once their players start clicking, especially the top 5. And from that perspective, at least, today's game is so much important for their top 5. And let's just bar Mitchell Marsh and David Warner out of it because they did perform well against Pakistan. They scored daddy hundreds there. But for 3, 4, 5, which is Steve Smith, Manas Labuschagne, Glenn Maxwell, they'll have to click together and they'll have to maybe take up a lot more responsibility in this team in terms of scoring runs. Because you never know with the Netherlands team, as we've been talking about it. They are going to be picking up wickets up in the power play. So if at all Australia lose their openers in the power play, you'd want the likes of Steve Smith and Manas Labuschagne to carry the innings forward and at the same time score runs. It's just not about surviving there. We saw it in the India game. They were not losing any wickets in that phase, but they did not score any runs as well. There was a complete drought in boundaries there. That's what really hampered Australia from scoring a 250 and them capitulating a 200. So they want to not do those mistakes. They want to rotate strike at the same time hit the odd boundary here and there. They cannot absolutely shut down boundaries, which is so not like what you want to play in modern day cricket in one day internationals. And that's one of the reasons why you not want to have two Steve Smiths in the team. You wanted to have one of them and then one Travis Head. But unfortunately, as long as Travis Head is not fit, they have to go in with this combination, and when you go in with this combination, one of them have to be an aggressor. And I think a better suited aggressor among Marnus Labush and Steve Smith is definitely Steve Smith, because he's got the ability. You know, Steve Smith can bat at a strike rate of 120, 115, or 130 on given days as well. And that's what we've been talking about, right? If one of them can take up the mantle, up the ante, and take up the mantle of saying that, okay, let's do this on this day, let's target a couple of ballers, and I can go behind this baller, it's definitely Steve Smith. Look, he's a better player of spin. He's got a good range against paces as well, and he's got the attacking cricket. But that's one of the reasons why he's been decently successful in T20 cricket as well, in comparison to what a Manas Labuschagne gives you. Manas Labuschagne has got the range, but definitely not as big as Steve Smith. But let's take some questions here. बाबर आजम की कैप्टनसी जानी वाली है आज मीटिंग है पीसीबी में. Not sure about this, to be very fair. I think if at all there's a meeting like this, we do not know what is this for. And in the middle of the World Cup, I don't expect Babar Azam to lose a captaincy
I mean,
at least.
they had a meeting like this, I remember, before the World Cup. That's the reason why Pakistan did not travel as well. When they were selecting the squad, they had, I think, a 3-day meeting or a 3-day boot camp. I don't know how to call it. But whatever came out of it has not worked for sure. But yeah, I think if there's a meeting that's happening, yeah, possibly, because I know one thing for sure: the Pakistan cricket fraternity, knowing them, having watched them for a long time, they're searching for a scapegoat, and I think Babar seems a prime candidate at this point in time.
Well, I'm not sure if they are looking for a scapegoat or whether are they looking at better things to focus on. One of the factors is definitely Babar Azam, but compared to what Babar Azam is doing, I also think they will pick up Mickey Arthur. They'll definitely pick
Yeah,
up Bradburn. They'll definitely pick up all the people in the management there who's gone to India for the World Cup. So I'm pretty sure they will be targeting people one by one. But I don't see Babar Azam to be the prime candidate, because that'll be not putting
unfortunately.
Pakistan cricket in a good stead, to be very honest,
Yeah,
because they want Babar Azam to still be the star boy in this team, because that's how they've been promoting the team. That's how they've been getting the deals, commercials. A lot of factors depends on Babar Azam, because they have made him the poster boy of Pakistan cricket at this point. So they don't want him to take all the brunt of things. They don't want him to be targeted as well. So they will definitely save his face, but at the same time, target other people around Babar Azam, which could be a Mickey Arthur, who's a director for cricket, who's not really, he's been doing online coaching, right, for all this while until
yeah,
this World Cup. So
correct.
I think Mickey Arthur will be the first one to get the fire. And maybe after that, it could be the head coach. Then you will see a lot of heads roll one by one by one. But I still think Babar Azam will continue with his captaincy as long as the World Cup ends. Maybe post the World Cup, you can talk about a transition in all formats, which includes a test format as well. Um, any update that's about it. On Travis Head, right? I think Travis Head is still recovering. I think he will be back by the England game or by the New Zealand game, which is in a couple of days from now. I think the New Zealand game is where I think Travis Head will be fit and fine to go. The New Zealand game is a very interesting game. It's in Dharamshala for that matter. And when you're playing in Dharamshala, you'll have to get your best players in. And against the New Zealand team, it's a day game as well in the morning. So you'd want all your players to be fit and fine for that game, because if Australia can defeat New Zealand, that's also going to put New Zealand under pressure. But at the same time, let's be honest, that's going to be the game to watch out for, because two teams coming up against each other in conditions which are going to be slightly more trickier than what you're going to be facing all across the World Cup. Australia is not going to be comfortable facing the swing ballers of New Zealand early in the morning in Dharamshala for sure. These are factors which needs to be considered going into that game. But I think you would want a full team to be fit for the next two matches, because those two matches are going to definitely define where you are heading in this World Cup. So Australia would want to rest Travis Head and not really risk him at this point. They've got 3 days time, and maybe if Travis Head is fine by then, well and good, or else they want to get a victory and get a momentum. यार क्या पाकिस्तान टीम अच्छी नहीं, मेरे को आंसर चाहिए. I mean,
We've
I
answered
mean,
this.
yeah, I
We've
think we've
spoken
answered
about
this.
their issues. We've spoken about their strengths. I think
Yeah,
it's not a bad team, that's for sure. They're not a terrible team. It's not like they can't win matches, but
yeah.
there are a lot of holes there, and they haven't done anything to fill those holes. I think maybe the next match again we'll probably speak about the same holes. So yeah, Aisha. But today it's about Netherlands and Australia for sure.
Yeah, I don't think Pakistan are a bad team, to be very fair. I still
Yeah,
think they've got a lot of good players, match winners, but I still don't, I just think they're not clicking together as a team. They are tactically very off. Their decision making is very off. Their bowlers are very off at this point. So it's
I
just
think
a
a
phase
lot
they're
of it
going
has to
through.
also do with the fact that they haven't. See, here's the thing, right? Look at, for example, that New Zealand match. It just seemed like it was slipping away. The New Zealand India match looked like it was slipping away. Where did the match turn again? It was when Mark Chapman and Trent Bolt combined together with the fielding. Or you look at all these. Like, I'm just giving you one example, but that's because they're confident. They're a confident bunch of lads, and I think any other team would have been scared to not get up and throw the ball, or just blindly throw the ball to the bowler. But those kind of things come with confidence. I think Pakistan team is so low on confidence at this point in time. They're afraid to do a lot of things that is required, right? They're afraid to innovate. They're afraid to take risks which help you win
Mhm.
such a high stakes game. And until and unless that confidence comes back up, I think the team's going to struggle in a very similar way, and that's going to take a lot of time. And I think this tournament, probably, I don't see that confidence ever coming back up again, because they know at this point in time it's. See, it's also a possibility that things are going to turn around, because now they have nothing to lose. One loss and it's done, like what Sandipani said yesterday. One loss and the team is out. That can turn things around, and that can really end up burying them. So maybe wait for one more game and then start analyzing, because I think wait for four more games, see how things go, and then maybe after the World Cup, forensic analysis can be done into it. At this point in time, the only thing that as a Pakistani fan you can do is support them as long as you can, because this team
Yeah.
needs confidence.
Well, well, depends. And crazy support is also not a good thing. I think fair
No,
criticism
not
also.
blindly, of
Yeah,
course.
that's one thing which you need to really consider in this day and age. But that's about it from us for today. I think we'll be back in the evening for the review of this game, and let's see how this game goes. Hopefully, we can see a good game of cricket. As long as we're concerned, now Australia batting first. Let's hope they bat well, or let's hope Netherlands really bowls well and puts Australia in a spot of bother. And this is an interesting match rather than wasting another one-sided game on the second day on the trot, because last 3 days it's been three one-sided games. I mean, Afghanistan, Pakistan, or South Africa, Bangladesh was extremely one-sided, and this I hope at least is not one of them. I hope the smaller team starts doing well against the big boys. That's about it. Thank you, and see you all in the evening. Bye bye.